Come on, y'all. Come on, come on. We are talking cultural appropriation on today's Carlos Hardy Show. You do not want to miss this show. We'll be right back.
The Carlos Hardy Show. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's the Carlos Hardy Show. Yeah, 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 yeah. Come on, let's do it. 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 It's the Carlos Hardy Show. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's the Carlos Hardy Show. Yeah, 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 yeah. Come on. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it.
Welcome back to the Carlos Hardy Show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We truly, truly appreciate it. We're talking about culture appropriation. Audience, you know what that is? Yes, I know you guys are here. You guys are experts. So let's meet our guests. Our first guest is a project manager. This is Gary Coyle.
Hey, yeah.
Y'all, give him some love. Our next guest is a doctor, a counselor, and a professor. This is Dr. Joy Leani. Call me. There you go. See, I got it. I was struggling, but I got it. And our third guest is a Hollywood actress. This is Natasha Vitti. Okay. So we all know what some of us don't know. Maybe at home you don't know what cultural appropriation is, but what it is when a dominant culture takes some of the elements, sociology-wise, takes some of the elements from a minority culture. So today we're going to talk about that. Okay. So Gary, let's start with you.
Okay.
Are you ready to get in there?
Yes.
Okay. Audience, are you ready? Here we go.
All right.
So Gary, tell me what that means to you. What does cultural appropriation mean to you?
Okay, so reading up a little bit on cultural appropriation, I do feel it's a topic that's kind of out there right now, right?
Okay.
But I don't think it should be, too hardline. I don't think we should be too kind of stringent on it. I think it's been happening for years, right? So I'm Irish, so I know a lot of Americans, right, might think they've Irish heritage or might have Irish heritage. But probably a good example of cultural appropriation would be St. Patrick's Day, all right? Okay.
So you say we're appropriating your culture?
Yeah, right. So St. Patrick's Day,
Keep going.
people, like to think that Irish people all have red hair.
Right.
Might be a little bit shorter, right?
Right.
Leprechauns and all that stuff. But also on the
Wow, really?
on the more kind of distasteful stuff of we all drink or we all get
Right.
drunk. So I mean that's cultural appropriation, right? As it's defined. So
Do you drink?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Moving on. I appreciate that. I really do. Joy, what do you think of what Gary's saying?
Well, okay, so...
Come on, doctor, give it to us.
Right, so a little bit really quickly about my background. This summer, hopefully I'll be done with all my stringent requirements and be licensed as a clinical psychologist, but I'm also a professional dancer and choreographer. I've been dancing since 4 and choreographing since 15.
Yes.
And so for instance, with hip hop, my generation created hip hop. I'm from New Jersey, and we didn't have, on the radio station, it was just rock music.
Right.
And we created this. We created graffiti was the art.
Who's this we you're talking
breakdancing.
about?
African Americans,
Okay,
black people in
hold
America.
hold up. Okay, I'm with
Black
you.
people in America.
Black people in America.
So we created a whole culture, evolving around it. And coming up, I was privileged to work with a lot of artists, from Jay-Z to Ja Rule to Big Pun to
Right.
Janet Jackson, you name it. But within that, with this cultural appropriation that's occurring now, it's
Yes.
when we have Indian food or Chinese food, we'll give them the credence and the credit, but we don't get that. And so instead, what's happening now is we as black women aren't being placed in these jobs that we essentially created for ourselves.
Okay.
And so there'll be one black girl, if any, and then she has to play like a very loose kind of role, as opposed to being strong and powerful how it was created. So that's one of the issues.
So you're saying, okay, that's one of the issues of cultural appropriation. Now, Natasha, going to you, is what Joy's saying resonating? Is it resonating that the appropriation is actually a domestic, or I would say a global thing?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that it can really be positive or negative depending on the intention.
Give me the positive.
But the intention, the history, how it's taken. But positive, I think that cultural appropriation can definitely be positive if it's seen as more of an admiration towards it.
Okay.
Or if it's if it's taken positively.
Okay, so in positive, you're talking, and audience, I want you guys to really be with me on this. Are you talking like maybe a Katy Perry wearing some locks or something, like some, like dreadlocks or something like that, and she's just kind of appreciating the culture by doing that? Is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, I actually, I have a really good example I thought of, the cowboy hat, for instance. Americans started wearing the cowboy hat after the US Civil War.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know that it was actually adapted from the sombrero.
Oh,
and so you
okay.
take it from a different culture, and then it gets taken to something else, and it has a completely different meaning.
So you're saying that's taken from the Latin culture,
Yes.
and it's being brought over into Americanized. Gary,
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
I think that's definitely real. Right? I think we also see that in a lot of music, right, too, where Latin music is kind of appropriated into white music, right? Justin Bieber singing Despacito. I mean, that might be a good example of that.
Right.
But I don't know, again, kind of back to that, if it's overwhelmingly negative or positive, I mean, who's the judge on that?
But is this something that we can appreciate, Joy? Is this something that, like Natasha was saying, that if you take that music, or if you take the actress, or you take the hair, or you take the clothing, can you as a person individually appreciate what someone else is doing to kind of pay homage to your culture?
For peace and blessings, I'm all about the appreciation. I think appreciation is healthy, but what's going on in this culture is we have a term for culture vulture. Okay, so no, it's not about an
Culture vulture.
appreciation.
Okay.
And those of us that speak on it, you get labeled with all these other little negative connotations, but
Right.
it's just speaking your truth. And so, for instance, Christopher Columbus, when he came to the island of Hispaniola, he killed 8 million Native Americans. When he came to the United States of America, he killed 150 million Native Americans. Africans were already here. How else would they have known where to go get the 26 tribes that they... I'm also a professor of sociology and psychology.
Okay, that's
just so
okay.
you know.
We with
But
you.
how
Go
else would
ahead.
they have known where to go and get the rest of us from? But many of us were already here. And so within that, the cultures were obliterated. And so, for instance, Native
Right.
Americans weren't allowed to, there was rules. They had to, quote unquote, assimilate.
Right.
A lot of them, many of their children were taken and their hair was cut, and they had to leave and go to different distant European countries, et cetera, et cetera. There was just a lot that happened here. And I just feel like people that don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. And so when we do little things and it seems like fun, it's really kind of hurtful.
What are those little things? You
So
mean
for
like the hair?
instance, 2 years ago, this guy, Daniel, whatever his last name is, Hargram or whatever, he printed out a picture of the African slave trades, a ship, and put it on a miniskirt and started a website and started selling skirts for $35. I guess he thought that was a good idea.
Right.
And then the website got shut down. But just little things like that. It's like really hurtful things, but we think it's kind of okay to do, And speaking of Katy Perry, like when she did a video, and I have some friends that were in a video too, as a matter of fact.
Right.
I don't remember the song, but it was a lot of Egyptian culture and all that. That's cool, as long as everybody knows that Egypt is in North Africa.
But,
I don't
let
have
me
an
ask you
issue
this.
with that.
So how do other cultures get into a culture that they may I wouldn't say idolize, but that they appreciate? How do if what I'm doing as an Asian person, appropriating with the dreadlock Jeremy Lin, how do I appreciate your culture? Do I just appreciate it from afar? How do I get inside your culture? Is that something that's appreciative, or is it something that you still say, you know what, don't wear them?
Let me just talk real quick about our hair. You guys can say anything. Okay, so, and I'm gonna speak for you, Carlos, because you have locks.
Yes.
So we are in a room full of people, but if Carlos and I were not in a room full of people, you would not see our hair. It would be put away. It's always tied up. It's just how we are, because our hair is very sensitive, and it needs moisture, and it needs a lot of love. And so we do different things for our hair.
Right.
Our hair does not respond to shampoo. It doesn't. I wash my hair with apple cider vinegar. We have to make our own products, which they're now selling more products, but that cater
go to
to
a
us.
specialized lactician, just so y'all know.
Yeah.
So you're correct on that.
Right.
I mean,
And so we do different things for our hair because our hair calls for us to do this. It's not to be cute. Like if I don't, first of all, comb my hair really, but if I don't take care of my hair, if I don't every day manipulate it rather, it will lock.
Okay.
That's my hair is naturally like that.
Gary, how about your hair?
My hair is naturally, I don't know, Irish, and it's just straight hair. But I mean, I get the whole aspect of, getting hairstyles from other cultures and, putting them on your own head. Right. But I think I read something, just thinking of all the cultural appropriation stuff, that Vikings even had dreadlocks.
Right.
So I don't know, how far does it go back that you,
Exactly.
draw that line and you're like, this culture can't use that. because of being negative. So.
Okay, Natasha, we're gonna let you answer that when we get back. When we come back, we're gonna have more with cultural appropriation, right, audience? Almost there. Here's what's coming up on the next episode of the Carlos Hardy Show. We'll be right back.
Coming up on the next Carlos Hardy Show.
How do we move the conversation forward? How do we move this conversation forward in a positive way that's going to tell the world about trans in a positive light? What do we do?
Treat us like a human.
Thank you.
Be a human.
Yeah. That it's okay to fetishize the trans community.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, it's one thing to be attracted to what you're attracted to, and to like what you like.
Right.
Right. But nobody wants to be a fetish.
It's more hard because I was a trans Army veteran who had a child.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's like my son's 10 now. Right. So it's like when we go places, people are like, "Oh, that's your son," it's easier now because they think, "Oh, that's a stand-up dad."
Yes.
Yeah, look at him taking care of his kid. But before I was transitioning, their mindset wasn't like that.
It doesn't cost any money to be straight in this country. It doesn't cost to be gay in this country. It costs to be transgender.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Carlos Hardy Show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And I just wanted to mention that all of my guests here have social media. You should see it there on the screen, so make sure you check it out. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Let's continue talking about cultural appropriation. Natasha, we left off with you.
Yes.
Okay? Begin. What to begin with?
Well, going off of what you guys were saying before, I think that it can be extremely harmful if you don't think about the repercussions for what you're about to do. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to, for example, wear a cross, you have to think about, is it going to affect or hurt? If you're going to wear a cross and you don't share those beliefs, is it going to affect or hurt the people who do have those beliefs? Mm-hmm. You just have to think about who it's going to affect.
Right.
And so what your example earlier that you were talking about with the dreadlocks, I think that would be okay because he, thought about.
He was very thoughtful.
He thought about it.
Just to add on to that, there was a gentleman, he was a basketball player who was a black African-American basketball player, and he kind of went off on Jeremy Lin. I forgot his name. Maybe producer can find that out, but I forgot his name. And he went off on Jeremy Lin, okay? But yet, this guy has on some, Chinese, Asian tattoos. So it didn't make sense to me. And that's what I mean. And we're talking about appropriation cultures. Then we talk about black women. Some, not all, Joy. Calm down. I'm just saying, because we're about to get it. Some that wear the long hair, and that's essentially an European look. With the long weaves and the long hair, so
we're taught to assimilate.
Yes,
and you have to. And the funny thing, like we have a thing called Black Girl Hair Stress, right? Mm-hmm. And we have it especially in the dance community and also in corporate America because my hair is curly. So when I wake up the same way he wakes up and does his hair and comes out, when I worked in corporate America, which I will never do again.
Don't blame you.
Anyway, and so I get me getting up and coming the same way you do your hair. I do my hair and come to work. It was an issue. Right. Like it was an issue on her hair. And so it's a conversation that we're really not privy to have in the rest of the world. We kind of have to have a subculture of us that are kind of like, this is what my hair does. This is who I am, but it's a problem, for people who don't respect our culture. And so we are very sensitive. And so I'm not going to put African Americans in a whole little thing with any other minority group besides Native Americans because of the atrocities that we continually face here. Asians don't face those atrocities. The Japanese culture was horrible. What happened to them? They were placed in concentration camps here in California and all of that. But since then, they've been back and they can get loans and houses and so I'm not. That was horrible. I'm not ever going to say that it wasn't, but you just can't justify it. You can't hold all those cultures up with black people and say, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm going to separate this out.
Right.
And so for us,
so you thinking black people have
as far as Asian tattoos, I don't mind that. Like I don't have an issue with that. It's we're talking about wisdom.
But where do we? Not to cut you off, but where do we draw the line? Where do we say
black people and black people stuff? That's where the line gets drawn.
With black people. So not Asians, not Latinos, no one else. You're saying to me that whenever you're appropriating a culture that is African American, it's not right.
Well, what I'm saying is what we're doing now is we're having this melting pot conversation, and I love everybody, and I think it's brilliant, like when we talk about multicultural.
Right.
But what it does is it takes away from what we were really talking about, which were black people and black people issues, and how we, how we're handling those. And so when you throw it into like a melting pot, then it kind of just gets thrown into the pot, and everybody's, nah, that's not what we're talking about. Very specific over here.
Gary?
What
do you think about what Joy is saying?
Yeah, I just think that, it's 2018, right? I think that America is a melting pot as it is.
Right.
And we all take from different cultures. And I mean, maybe because I'm not, African American, I didn't grow up here, I never felt the full brunt of the history here.
Right.
But I mean, people take from my culture here. People take from the Latin culture here, people take from the Eastern European culture here, and, no one says nothing about that.
Right.
Or do they? And yeah, like that, like where do we draw the line? I mean, I don't really think
I get that line. That line is everywhere. But at some point in time, as a culture, we must progress. We must move on. And I get the subculture, like, okay, African Americans got to get together, the Irish got to get it together, the Latinos, whatever the case may be. But at some point in time, to me, personally, I think we still have to have that collective conversation. It just can't be, well, we're going to deal with what we got to deal. No, we got to have that conversation. And that's what this show is trying to do.
Right.
Right, Natasha?
I think that it's about the levels of oppression and discrimination. And so not necessarily each group, but just because African Americans, Native Americans have been through the most oppression, the most discrimination. And so I think that's why they're more focused on. But I don't think that it's like, oh, only African Americans, only Native Americans. I think it's just they're the ones that have faced the most.
So since we've faced the most, you're saying, Joy, once again, that we need to be at the top line, like, look, don't touch our culture?
No.
Is that?
No, I'm saying that what I appreciate is when everybody, like Irish people learn about their culture, Africans learn about their culture, everybody learns about their culture, and we come together and share. That's brilliant.
Yes.
That's brilliant. That's human. Okay? And like my focus is humanistic existential before anything. So I'm a humanist, right? And I love human beings. But when we don't do that, and for instance, when you send little black kids into school to assimilate and they don't get knowledge of self, and then they start going up against the different things that we face in corporate America and other places, that if you tell somebody, they would say you were crazy, or maybe, you're agitating, situations or whatever. But like, for instance, so we have colleges that were made specifically for us because we couldn't go to other colleges.
Go anywhere else.
But I'm from a family of historically black colleges and universities. I'm a graduate of one. My daughter is at one right now. My grandma, my dad, everybody, And the difference is, it's very different seeing her in a school system where there was everybody, and now seeing her in college, like stepping into her truth. And the greatest thing is now she'll be able to come out and completely be with everybody else and all the other cultures and appreciate who everyone is.
Because she knows exactly who she is.
Because she gets that about herself.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%, that if you can somehow grasp your ideology as a culture, as an African American, as an Asian person, as a white person, if you can get that together and pull it in and be able to be in communion with your culture, I get that 100%. But at the same time, I just really, really feel that we have to somehow have a conversation while trying to understand our own cultures. We have to have that conversation, because if not, we're going to bump heads. Look at what just happened with the kid with the H&M. You guys read about that, with the monkey on the shirt. He had the monkey on the shirt. Everybody got upset. And everybody got mad because.
Why? What happened?
Because so basically, what happened? The kid, the kid was a little black kid from H&M, and he had this. The company put monkey on his shirt. This little monkey or something on his shirt, and a lot of African Americans got upset and angered about this situation. LeBron James and this, Puffy, everybody got upset. And I didn't understand why people get upset. And I think that speaks to your point, Joy, that a lot of people don't understand who they are. So I think they identify with those things that were in the past. They don't know who they are.
At some point, we have to move on. Right?
At some point.
So with that whole monkey thing, you guys can all Google this right now. In the 50s and 60s, like, there were horrible, like, products that you buy to this day, and they portrayed Africans and people of African descent as monkeys,
big
as
lips, nooses,
all of that.
All
they
that.
had cartoons and commercials. It was horrible. It was horrific, the atrocities that we suffered because of that. And then what happened? So today, would be my grandmother's birthday. She passed last year, right? But so that generation is gone. But their grandkids, like we're here,
Yes.
and and our kids need to know, and their kids need to know, because if not, that's what happens. Your
Right.
little son is the little
But
model with
I
the
get
little
that,
monkey
but
on his shirt. at
right, with the
H&M.
monkey on the shirt. But do we affect? And we almost out of time. But do we get affected psychologically by this? Why let it affect you?
Because we got post-traumatic slavery disorder.
Okay, now that's good. Y'all get that? We got
In the
post.
DNA, mixed in with my melanin. I
agree.
said it.
I agree with you 100%. Gary, what you think about that?
I think, the whole thing in general should be taken with a bit of a light stance. I think, history is history, and I don't know if it still has the same representation as it did in that day, but
Back in the
then
day.
again, I'm not really, I haven't been
You
brought
haven't
up
lived
with-
it, so in your mind you're like, okay,
Yeah,
I can speak about it, but I
to
haven't
be
lived
safe, to get attacked or anything,
it. Natasha, you get the last word.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that it's really important that everyone learns their history. And the unfortunate thing is that true history is not always taught until the college level. And so I found that a lot. I didn't find out the truths. You get taught in elementary school and high school that it's always like this white dude, did all these huge things. And then you find out in college, no, it was his wife. No, it was this other guy who ended up being, his slave. It was like that made these contributions, but because they were so oppressed, they weren't able to be seen in the public eye. And so I think it's really important to know your family history as well as your cultural history.
I know because it was stripped away. we know it was stripped away. Anything, Joy, before we go?
Yeah, I would just, I really appreciate all the guests. I really appreciate you. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate and honor what you guys are saying. And I do just want to add that, I'm all about the us and the human beings coming together in love. But if you don't know, just ask.
Yes.
And stop assuming that and stop assuming that certain things are going to make you be down, because it's not. We're looking at you side-eyed. Right.
I get you. All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank my guests so much. Natasha, Joy, Gary, we truly appreciate it. Remember, you can subscribe, like, comment, give us comments. We want comments, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
They're going to get y'all. We want
Yes.
comments, okay? Thank you guys so much. Until next time, I'm Carlos Hardy, and check out the next video. Thanks.
It's the Carlos Hardy Show. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's the Carlos Hardy Show. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Leave a question, comment, a like, or subscribe below. The takeover has begun.